What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto loses his god power? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Well, that was interesting. A 7-year-old Naruto thought as he limped up the stairway to his apartment. He just came from the park playground. He usually went there to play with his friends, but today his best friend, Shikamaru, had gotten into a fight with an Uchiha. Naruto tried to stop the fight only to take Shikamaru's place, and sometime during the fight a Uchiha Chunin must have seen the fight and came over to stop it. Naruto didn't know what happened and his friends were too afraid to tell him what really happened, but when the Chunin grabbed Naruto's arm, there was a flash in Naruto's vision and next thing he knew he was sitting on the ground with his legs extended out. His right leg was in extreme pain, and the Chunin was laying in front of him with a large gash across his chest. He wasn't breathing either. Naruto hoped that the guy was okay, but deep down he knew that the Chunin was most likely dead. But that was not the thing that worried Naruto, it was the fact that he didn't feel one bit of sadness or remorse towards the man. The reason Naruto hoped the man was alive was the fact that if he wasn't, Naruto would most likely lose most, if not all, of his friends, and be sent to prison or worse, executed. Naruto finally arrived at the door to his apartment. He pulled out his key and unlocked the door. He then entered and began walking toward his bathroom. He had been living in this abandoned apartment complex ever since he ran away from the orphanage. He hated that place, so he had been taking care of the complex ever since he found it abandoned. No one ever found out he lived there and he planned to keep it that way. When he entered the bathroom, he turned on the lights and went over to the mirror to see if he was cut or bruised. Then Naruto noticed something very wrong with his eyes. They had changed from normal ocean blue eyes to 3 concentric circles around his pupils. The centermost circle was a gleaming sky blue. The next one was a lighter sky blue. The outermost was a stunning silver. And the barely noticeable white of the eyes was a dark orange, almost red color. Naruto had never seen anything like it. They were amazing to look at and look really cool. Naruto then shrugged. He would deal with it in the morning. Naruto was the example of abnormality, one of which was his unusual height. He was 5 foot 11 inches, which is really tall for a 7-year-old, but other than his eyes and his abnormal height he was, physically, completely normal. Naruto had silver spiked hair, somewhat pale skin, no acne or scars of any kind on his face, and from the once-a-day workouts he did, he had a slightly well-built figure. The two most liked of Naruto's abnormalities was his inhuman stamina and amazing healing ability. He could easily run for over 6 hours and still be able to keep running, which he had done before, and he could get near crippling wounds and it would be healed the next day, like his leg, which Naruto could tell was broken, was probably healing already. After seeing that he just had a few bruises here and there, Naruto decided to get to bed, take a shower in the morning, and stay in for the rest of the day. So he exited the restroom, turning off the light as well, and walked towards his bed. Orange light was shining through the window just above his bed. This was the time he would usually watch the sunset from the view of his roof. But Naruto was too tired from his fight with that Chunin, which he was still wondering about. Naruto took off his black with red clouds hoodie and gray shoes, and plopped down on his bed and fell asleep. That midnight, Naruto's head shot up when he heard a large crash from outside. He immediately looked out the window to see what the commotion was about. He could see nothing, it was pitch black, thanks to the new moon in the night sky, but Naruto could easily hear running and jumping in the distance. So he tried to focus his vision to see better, only to have his entire world become illuminated, and see several glowing blue figures that stood out from the rest of the black and white world. They moved like ninja, fast, really fast, but somehow Naruto could see all of their movements like they were in slow motion. One of the figures had the shape of a large wolf or something, the others, obviously humans, were following the wolf, and were coming straight at Naruto's apartment. In less than a second Naruto had his hoodie and shoes on and was about to run out the door only to see that a blue glow was in the direction of the front door. With that, Naruto did the next best thing. He went through the window, getting cut several times but nothing fatal or debilitating. He knew why they were there, and he was no planning to go quietly to his own death. He's on the move, Naruto could hear from behind him as he descended. Naruto heard a sickening crack as he hit the ground and a jolt of pain from his leg, but was too high on adrenaline to really take notice, and quickly started to run. He began to concentrate his strength into his feet and felt himself jolt forward at a blinding speed. His pursuers were surprised to see a child move at such an incredible speed, but immediately snapped out of it and ran to catch up. I have to get out of this village, I'll be killed if I stay here. Naruto thought as he ran as fast as he could, gaining even more speed, which going at his speed would seem impossible. Before he knew it he was at the gate and had at least 10 glowing figures staring at him. Oh, shit, Naruto thought as he slid to a halt. You, said the figure in the middle of the group, while the others drew their weapons. You, Uzumaki Naruto, are to be arrested under the suspicion that you are responsible for the massacre of the Uchiha clan. Come quietly and you will not be killed. The man said as the group that were chasing Naruto before landed behind the boy. Wah, what? Naruto said, shocked to hear this. I didn't kill anyone, let alone a whole clan. We never said you did, you're a suspect, now just come with us, kid. The man said as he lunged forward at an incredible speed, only to have Naruto sidestep the lunge and jump behind the group. I'm not going anywhere, Naruto said as he turned around to face them. He had a plan if they chose to keep chasing him. Naruto didn't know how he knew this jutsu or the others, but he knew them nonetheless and was going to use them. I don't know how you're this powerful, kid, but we're Anbu and you're coming wi. The Anbu captain was interrupted when he saw Naruto doing several hand signs at an unbelievable speed. Fire element. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Naruto roared as he unleashed a massive ball of fire on the Anbu squad who weren't able to avoid the flame and were consumed. Naruto scoffed as the smoke and steam cleared to reveal the dirt road that was once sand was now glass, and the Anbu were ash. So much for Konoha's great Anbu. Naruto said as he turned to leave only to see 70 Anbu land on the glass road. They were about to throw kunai when Naruto did several hand signs in an instant, and yelled. Fire element. Dragon Flame Bomb. With that, Naruto reared his head back, taking a deep breath, and unleashed a beam of fire from his mouth, almost instantly obliterating the army of Anbu before him. Naruto didn't stop there though, he blew even harder, intensifying the beam of fire coming from his mouth. This caused the buildings surrounding the glass road to catch on fire. Naruto then released the jutsu to see the entire area around him was either in flames or had become glass, and unknown to him in the bushes to Naruto's right, Uchiha Itachi, who was fleeing the village after killing his clan, was watching the 7-year-old. His face held a mixture of awe and interest. So this is the boy who killed Inaki this afternoon. Itachi thought, how could someone so young be so powerful? He then was caught off guard when Naruto swung around to face Itachi. Suddenly Naruto began forming hand signs at such a speed that even Itachi's Sharingan couldn't keep up with. Come out, before I fry you too. Naruto said, he was not going to be taken anywhere, at least not alive. Itachi's interest in the boy made him come out into the open. He didn't have his katana out or any weapons. But Naruto saw his Anbu gear and was about to finish his jutsu until he saw he was covered in blood and wasn't wearing his mask. Why did you kill those Anbu, kid? Itachi asked. The Anbu were looking for Itachi, so why would they attack a 7-year-old like they did? But then something caught Itachi's eye. This kid has Rinnegan, how is that possible? They were going to either kill me or take me to prison, neither I wish to happen to me, so I killed them. Naruto stated bluntly, and seeing as you're one of them I'm going to get rid of you. And with that Naruto finished his jutsu. Fire element. Dragon Flame Bow. Naruto was cut off when he was sucked into the world of Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi, that was foolish, boy. Itachi said, the two were standing in the same place as before, but now the world had turned a different color. The sky was a sickly orange, the moon was crimson red, the clouds were crimson as well, the environment around them was a shade of black and red. Itachi and Naruto were black, while their cloths were white. What's going on? Naruto asked, somewhat worried. This is the world of Tsukuyomi. Here I control you time and space. Here I'm God, Itachi stated, approaching Naruto. You can't escape, your fate is now in my Han. Itachi was interrupted when he looked into Naruto's eyes. Suddenly the world around the two began to break apart until the both of them stood in a black landscape. In the sky was a blue moon. What have you done? Itachi yelled, only to fall to his knees, putting his hands over his eyes, pressing against them, screaming in pain. Then Naruto and Itachi returned to the real world. The real world, Naruto looked to see Itachi was in the same position he was in Tsukuyomi, but there was blood leaking from between his fingers. That was not what made Naruto confused. It was the fact that the wood seemed a lot clearer than ever before. He could see every detail of every little thing. Unknown to Naruto, when Itachi used the Mangekyo on Naruto and looked into Naruto's Rinnegan, while in Tsukuyomi, Itachi's Sharingan had been absorbed into Naruto's eyes, Mangekyo and all. "What have you done to me?" Itachi yelled. He looked up. His eyes were still there. They were bloodshot and blood was leaking out of his eye sockets. He had black eyes that were even more darkened by the blood surrounding them. To say Itachi was shocked by what he saw would be an understatement. The two innermost circles of Naruto's eyes held Itachi's triangular Mangekyo, that then reverted to their normal 3 black teardrop-like marks, and then the marks merger with the lines that separated each Rinnegan circle. Naruto noticed that the world around him seemed a lot less defined, almost blurred, but then a massive wave of pain rushed over him and he clutched his head, which was pulsating with wave after wave of pain. Naruto then witnessed all the things that Itachi had seen and heard in his entire life all in an instant, but Naruto witnessed it all in real time. He watched 13 years through Itachi's eyes. The things that Naruto remembered from the vision was a boy named Sasuke, Itachi's little brother, a man that looked a lot like Sasuke just with more hair. He was named Madara, Itachi's mentor. There was also a man with orange hair and a lot of piercings, and with Naruto's eyes just they were gray at the center. He was Pain. There was also a village, Noah Metropolis. It was always raining when Itachi was there. It was called a Megacure, the village hidden in the rain. "That's where I'm going to go after this," was what Naruto told himself when he got his bearings. You stole my eyes," Itachi said in almost an insane way. "Yeah, it seems so," Naruto said impassively, "and I'm going to give Sasuke his revenge for what you did to him." Naruto had seen all the things Itachi had done to Sasuke and he felt pity for the kid. "I'd like to see you accomplish that," Itachi said, going for his katana only to find it missing. "Looking for this?" Naruto said, tapping the blade against his leg. Itachi looked up to see Naruto holding his katana. But what made Itachi shiver in fright was the Sharingan marks on Naruto's eyes. "Now I'm going to find where you left that kid and I'm going to let him kill you," Naruto said. Then Itachi felt a gust of wind pass him and then he felt his arms and legs go limp. Naruto was where he was standing before, but Itachi knew that Naruto had done something to him. Itachi looked down in horror to see large gashes going up both his thighs and arms. They were deep enough for him to see bone. "Now to find Sasuke," Naruto said as he appeared next to the limb Itachi and grabbed him violently by his hair, making Itachi hiss in pain and close his eyes. Then the both them disappeared, as Konoha ninja arrived to put out the growing fire that Naruto caused. The Uchiha estate. Naruto, with Itachi in tow, appeared in the center of the Uchiha estate, their medic Nin carrying dead bodies toward the hospital. Naruto grabbed one, letting go of Itachi, and pressed the blade of his katana to the startled medic Nin's throat. "Where is Uchiha Sasuke?" Naruto asked calmly, giving off a little killing intent. "KK Konoha HH Hospital," the medic Nin said, afraid for his life. "Thanks," Naruto said with a smile that somewhat confused the medic Nin. Naruto then released the terrified and confused medic Nin, grabbed Itachi by the hair again, and disappeared. Konoha Hospital. Naruto and Itachi appeared on top of a building near the hospital. There was a lot of commotion going on right at the moment, so Naruto stayed away. "Now how am I going to find him?" Naruto thought of Sasuke, then began to focus his vision. His world turned black and white like it did before. He then saw a blue light on the 10th floor. He and Itachi, once again, disappeared. Naruto appeared outside Sasuke's room. He had learned how to focus his chakra to certain parts of his body, like his hands and feet, to do multiple tasks such as walking on walls, rupturing glass windows for quiet entry. Naruto entered the room as quietly as possible and laid down the bloody Itachi against a wall. He then walked over to Sasuke's bed. The raven-haired boy looked sad. "Hey, wake up, kid," Naruto said as he shocked Sasuke's shoulder. Sasuke's eyes fluttered open from the noise and contact. He saw a person with silver-spiked hair and weird eyes and shot up. "Who are you?" Sasuke demanded. Now, I have something for you, kid," Naruto said as he moved aside to revile Itachi slumped up on a wall, blood pouring out of his legs and arms. Sasuke then looked at Naruto, held out his hand which had Itachi's katana. "Go ahead, kid, take it." Sasuke grasped the handle of the sword, cautiously taking the weapon from Naruto, who then helped Sasuke out of the bed. Sasuke then approached Itachi slowly. Itachi looked up at Sasuke with bloodshot eyes. He had a defeated look on his face. "Are you really going to kill your own brother, Sasuke?" Itachi asked. Sasuke was now right in front of Itachi. Naruto watched Itachi to make sure he didn't pull a sly move or anything. "You're not my brother, Itachi. That title ceased any meaning when you killed mom and dad, and our clan," Sasuke said as a tear rolled down his cheek. He then thrusted the blade forward right into Itachi's heart, and with that Itachi was dead. Sasuke fell to his knees and began to sob. "It's okay, kid, he deserved it," Naruto said as he walked towards the window. Sasuke looked up at Naruto with pain-stricken eyes. "Who are you?" Sasuke asked once again. "Why have you done this for me?" Naruto shrugged as he prepared to jump out the window. "I guess, I just overwhelmed with pity for you. I just decided to get this out of the way," Naruto stated. "Oh, the name is Naruto." And then he was gone. The forest around Konohagakure. Racing through the forest, Naruto had only one thing on his mind: find that man with eyes like his. Naruto knew exactly where to go. Somehow he knew exactly what direction to go to get to Omegakure. It was directly west of Konoha. Naruto was using his Rinnegan eyes, combined with Sharingan, to their fullest. He saw everything, every animal, every bug, every particle in the air. The world had never been more physically clear before, and he loved it. It was a 3-day journey, at most, but Naruto was moving so fast that he was already at the Konoha grass border after 3 hours of running, and at the Kasu aim border an hour after that. In front of Naruto was a massive swamp that seemed to stretch out for miles and miles, and the thick rainfall didn't help. Naruto hated the rain. It always made him feel sad, made him feel like there was no tomorrow. He wished the rain would just stop. Suddenly, the rain stopped. The clouds were still there, just no raining. Then Naruto noticed off in the distance there were lights, not natural lights. He then focused to see what it was. Just like when the rain stopped, his vision zoomed to see the raging metropolis of Omegakure. Naruto was about to begin running when he heard a snap, and felt his leg give way. He groaned in pain. It was his broken leg from before. He had completely forgot about it. "Fuck," Naruto cursed under his breath, as he slowly rose to his feet. "I'm going to have to walk the rest of the way. Sigh, oh well." Naruto then began to limp across the water, wincing in the pain of each step. "This is going to be a long walk," Naruto thought as he pulled his hood over his head. "Please don't start raining again." Omegakure, Pain was staring out at the cityscape, in confusion. "I never stopped the rain," he said to himself. "Pain-sama," said a feminine voice from behind him. "Something wrong?" she asked as she walked out onto the balcony Pain was standing on. She had short dark blue hair, bright green eyes, thick blue eyeshadow, and there was a silver stud piercing just under her bottom lip. She was young, looked no older than 16, she was incredibly beautiful, and she was wearing a plain black high-collar cloak, but it was not hard to see that she had an amazing body under that cloak. Pain continued to look out in the distance as he responded, "Someone has disturbed the rainfall. Find this intruder, Conan." "As you wish, Pain-sama," Conan said as she stepped to his side, and then closed her eyes. Conan's face began to almost fall apart in sheets of paper, then the rest of her body including her cloak became sheets of paper. The sheets of paper then became butterfly-shaped that began to scatter in the wind, flying in different directions in search for the one who stopped the rain. Back with Naruto, Naruto was walking across the water, wondering exactly what just happened to his life. At the start of yesterday he was Naruto, the young giant that scared all the big kid away from his friends, and now look at him. He was now Naruto, the man suspected for killing the Uchiha clan and killer of 70 to 100 Anbu. Damn, does fate work in mysterious ways? Naruto thought. Naruto's thoughts were then interrupted by an odd sight. A small white butterfly was flying at him. When it reached Naruto, it then stayed there, just flapping its wing looking at him. After closer observation, Naruto saw that it was origami, not a living creature. It also had a human chakra signature. That's weird, Naruto thought. Hi there, little fella, Naruto said as he walked towards the little origami butterfly. When he was right in front of the piece of parchment, he held out his hand to allow the butterfly to land on his index finger. Said butterfly then landed on Naruto's finger and stared at Naruto even further. Conan was staring at the boy like he had grown an extra head. He has Rinnegan. Only Nagato has Rinnegan, Conan thought. You're quite the interesting little piece of paper. Naruto said with a smile. The origami butterfly then took flight again. Naruto looked to where it was going to see thousands upon thousands of paper butterflies, and right before Naruto's eyes the butterflies formed together, into a blue-haired woman. To say the woman was beautiful in Naruto's eyes would be an epic understatement, for Naruto thought he was looking at a goddess. Wow, you're really pretty. Naruto blurted out without knowing it. Conan was somewhat taken aback by the statement, and blushed a little. Naruto then realized what he had just said, causing him to look at the ground next to his feet, trying to hide his blush. Regaining her impassive, I don't care about anything, facade, Conan decided that Pain needed to meet this boy. You need to come with me, boy, my leader would like to see you. Conan said. Naruto returned his gaze to Conan, his blush from before was gone. He was serious now, this woman could be a threat to him and he may have to kill her. Who would this leader of yours be? Naruto asked as he activated his Sharingan, hoping that the woman understood the warning. He really didn't want to kill someone so beautiful, but if she forced him to do anything he would kill her. Conan was taken aback once more, but in fear, not embarrassment as before. Naruto didn't know it but he was giving off killer intent, quite a bit of it too. Conan was even more surprised to see the 3 Sharingan marks that appeared in his eyes. She then took several slow steps backwards. He has the same eyes as you, he just wants to have a talk with you, she said cautiously. Naruto immediately deactivated his Sharingan, and stopped giving off killer intent. Sorry about that, I'm just a little on edge, Naruto said. Conan then calmed her senses, and asked, so you'll come with me? Naruto nodded. Alright. We need to hurry up, my leader isn't the most patient person you could meet. Sorry, but I can't run anywhere with this broken leg, Naruto said dully. Conan sighed. Okay, then. I guess we'll have to walk, Conan said in a disappointed way as she began to walk towards a megacure. Naruto struggled to catch up, but eventually did walk next to her. Conan was only a few inches taller than Naruto, so, what's your name? Naruto asked, trying to make small talk. Conan, you? She said. Naruto, nice to meet you by the way, he said with a smile, and for some reason, unknown to her, Conan blushed at the smile, which in turn caused Naruto to snicker. This could be fun, he, Naruto thought to himself, smirking inwardly. Why am I blushing? Conan thought, trying to make herself stop blushing like a teenage schoolgirl. Conan-chan, are you blushing? Naruto said with a devilish smirk. Conan turned beet red at the comment and the chan part, and started to walk a little faster. Why am I blushing? He's like 12 years old. Conan thought, still blushing. Naruto just smiled ear to ear. I'm glad I didn't have to kill her, he thought as he picked up the pace. The Hokage Tower, Konohagakure. Could you describe this boy, Sasuke? The 3rd Hokage asked. He was sitting behind his desk, a mess of paperwork on either side of him, and in front of him was the sole survivor of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. He was very tall, he had spiked gray hair, these real weird eyes, he had a hoodie on, it was black with red clouds. That's all I really remember, Sasuke said. He seemed sad yet at peace at the same time, whether it was from killing his brother and getting revenge, or just the fact that he had somehow gotten over it, the old man didn't know. Thank you, Sasuke-kun, you may wait outside, I must take care of something private, the 3rd said, and with that Sasuke got up, bowed, gave the Hokage a fake smile, and exited the room. So is that who you saw, Kakashi? Suddenly a man with silver hair in Anbu gear appeared in the room. His Anbu mask was pulled over his left eye. Yes, that was what he looked like, he said. Hokage-sama, how could a kid as young as Naruto do that to Anbu? Naruto's mother had a powerful bloodline limit that we have never seen before, nor heard of. Minato said it was called Rinnegan, the most powerful dujutsu of all 3. The Hokage said. And Naruto has this dujutsu, what are its powers? Kakashi asked. I don't know, but Minato told me that this dujutsu was that used by the sage of the 6 paths, the creator of the ninja world. The 3rd stated, Kushina is a direct descendant of the most powerful ninja in history. That is how she destroyed the Kyuubi 7 years ago. Kakashi looked down at the floor at the comment. He hated being reminded about the day 7 years ago when his sensei's wife died after banishing the Kyuubi to a different realm. He even more saddened at the memory of his sensei dying on the battlefield only minutes later. The medics said nothing was wrong with him, he just died. He didn't have any mortal wounds, he wasn't poisoned, he just gave up on life and died. Hokage-sama, did Kushina have any relatives? Kakashi asked. I don't know, Minato met her in AIM. She was an orphan and was only 14 years old, so Minato brought her here. The Hokage stated, she never talked about her family, at least not to anyone but Minato. So where do you think Naruto went? Kakashi asked. I wouldn't know, the hunter Nin said they lost him at the border to Kusa, so he could be going to AIM. The Hokage said. What are we going to do about Naruto? Kakashi asked. There are at least 200 Anbu that want to avenge their fallen squadmates. We'll let him go, we drove him away, so we won't try and force him to come back. The old man stated as he stood from his chair and walked towards the door, and for those Anbu who want vengeance, tell them it was Itachi. About that, Hokage-sama, have you read the report on Itachi's autopsy? Kakashi said as he slid his mask onto his face. The third came an abrupt halt at the comment and turned to Kakashi. No, why do you ask? The Hokage questioned. His Sharingan, it was missing. Kakashi stated hesitantly. His eye were gone? The Hokage said, somewhat confused. No, not his eye, but the Sharingan itself were missing. That's odd. Could Rinnegan be able to absorb other Jujutsu? It could. Kakashi, I want you to research into this further. Find out why Itachi's Sharingan are missing. Understood? Hi, Hokage-sama. And with that, Kakashi disappeared in a poof of smoke. The third Hokage sighed, then turned back to the door too. He then came out of the room to see Sasuke sitting against a wall, with streaks of tears coming from his eyes. This kid's going to have a hard time, but Naruto helped him, not in the way I would have hoped, but he helped him, nonetheless. The Hokage thought as he prepared to explain the situation to Sasuke. A mega cure, 7 years old? Konan asked in shock. In their walk the two had been talking about several things, and then Naruto's age came up somehow. They were still a good half hour away from a megacure. What? Naruto said as he walked with his hands behind his head. Naruto's leg had also healed on his walk with Konan, but he was too caught up in the conversation to notice. Something wrong with being 7 years old? Well, you look like you're at least 12. Konan said, well, that's just great, I'm 16 years old, and blushing because of a 7-year-old's charm. Konan thought to herself, I don't know what's sadder, that I was afraid of a 7-year-old an hour ago, or that I'm attracted to a 7-year-old. Wait, what did I just say? Hey, Konan-chan, Konan. What is it? Konan asked. Well, for one you stopped walking, and two you look like you just saw a ghost. Naruto said dully. That was then that Konan noticed that she and Naruto had come to a halt barely a mile away from a megacure. It was nothing, come on, we need to keep going. Konan said, trying to be as nonchalant as possible. She was failing miserably. She was also trying to hide most of her face behind the high neck collar of her cloak, as to cover her growing blush as she though over what she had though a moment ago. Oh, for God's sake, I'm just pathetic. Konan-chan? Naruto asked as the two started to walk again. Yes? Konan asked as she was still trying to hide her blush. Do you always blush like this when you talk to guys, or is it just with me? Naruto said with a smirk. Just then Konan turned 12 different shades of red, and stared to pick up the pace by walking quicker. I guess that means it's just me. Naruto said as he caught up to her only to have her start running. Oh come on, it was just a joke. He yelled as he chased after her. A Mikage Tower, a megacure. In a large chamber overlooking the vast metropolis of a megacure, two figures stood waiting for their blue-haired teammate to arrive. One was clad in a black cloak, had a AIM headguard with a scratch through the 4 lines that are the symbol. He had orange spiked hair that was combed back. The two most striking features were his eyes and his piercings. He had a large array of black metal piercings on his face, 6 studs on his nose, 3 on each side. 6 ring piercings on the rim of each ear with a small bar through the middle of the ear, and 2 fang-like piercings through the bottom lid. His eyes were much like those of Naruto's 3 concentric circles surrounding the pupil. The innermost circle, the one around the pupil, was dark gray. The second was light gray, and the outermost was silver. The white of his eyes were in dark orange, much like his hair. The man next to him was about 3 inches taller and was clad in red battle armor, with a red rope tied around his waist, and a black cape under the shoulder armor but over the chest plate. He had very long black spiked hair, that stopped at about mid-back, and his bangs were as long as the rest his hair that covered most of the right side of his face. His face had an almost inhuman beauty, his eyes were red with 3 black marks around the pupil, and he had an aura about him that demanded respect and gave off great power. Both were staring out into the distance past the lights, the buildings, the people. Watching as the most powerful being in this world approached. "Do you feel its power, Madara-sama?" Pain said to the armored ninja. "Yes, it is massive. Even from this distance I can feel the power like I were standing next to a biju. Yet it feels as if it's trying to hold the power in, trying to hide its presence." Madara stated as he narrowed his eyes. "Yes, and doing a poor job of masking its chakra." Pain said, smirking. "No," Madara said, causing Pain's smirk to disappear. "It's covering its chakra quite well. It just has so much that it can't hold it all in without extreme concentration, which requires to stop moving and centering oneself, meditating in short." Pain snorted at the explanation. He hated it when Madara explained simple things to him like he was a child. Pain then noticed the massive chakra signature was getting stronger quicker than before. "It seems it's picked up the pace, might get here in a few minutes." Pain said as he turned to Madara only to see he was walking towards the door. "When it arrives bring him to my throne room," Madara said as he opened the door to leave, but not before adding something. "Oh Nagato, wasn't Itachi going to arrive today?" Yes, he was. If he's not here then your apprentice has had a change of heart or is dead." Pain plainly stated. "Neither seem very likely, but he should be here within the next few hours." Madara said as he walked out the room. Wonder who killed him," Pain said to himself. Just outside the Amikage Tower, Naruto and Konan had arrived a lot sooner than expected. Both had also completely forgot the reason they were going so slowly, but that was only because there were more pressing matters at hand. "Naruto, when you meet Pain-sama, you will address him as such, understood?" Konan said as her expressions and voice became impassive and emotionless. Naruto then took example and changed his stance as well. "I understand," Naruto said as he walked towards the door of the tower. Konan quickly followed. When the two entered they received bows from everyone in the lobby. Naruto noticed they all were wearing aim headguards with a scratch through the symbol. Konan nodded at the bowing ninja, and they all returned to the tasks. Naruto and Konan just walked towards the closest elevator, and entered said elevator. Konan immediately pressed the button to the top of the floor, and turned to Naruto. "Naruto, whatever you do in Pain's presence do not disrespect him, he will not hesitate to kill you." Konan said to Naruto who was looking straight forward waiting for the doors to open. "And what makes you think he can kill me?" Naruto said arrogantly. "Things like that will get you killed, Naruto, you may be powerful, but Pain is a god." Konan said. Naruto scoffed, "A man who fancies themselves as a god are bound to die quickly in this world." Konan was taken aback by the statement. If an old man or someone like Madara were to say something like that she wouldn't have been as surprised, but this came from a 7-year-old. How could someone so young have said something like that? He can't be 7, he's too mature. Konan thought. "Where did you get that from?" Konan asked. "From a man named Itachi, he's the one who gave me my Sharingan eyes as well." What? Those are Itachi's Sharingan. Yeah, why did you know him?" "Yes, I did. What happened to him?" "I let his little brother kill him. The poor kid need to kill that guy for the things he did to him." Konan just stared at Naruto in pure awe. This has to be a dream or a nightmare. There is no way Naruto could have defeated Itachi. "He used his Mangekyo Sharingan on me and when he looked into my eyes his were absorbed into mine," Naruto said as an aura of darkness seemed to appear around him. "When that happened I saw his entire life like it was my own. I saw it all in real time and when it came to the moment I meet him I returned to real world. It was a little unnerving since in my mind it just watched 13 years go by. I saw things that amazed me, while I watched things I'd rather not think about. I learned a lot though, like Nagato, Madara, Omegakure, you, the Sharingan, and the Rinnegan." Konan was shocked that Naruto knew Pain's real name. No one but her and Madara knew Pain's real name, unless Itachi was told by Madara. Konan was about to ask Naruto another question, then the elevator doors opened to reveal a dimly lit room with a large window that overlooked the city of Omegakure. There was a man standing in front of the window staring back at them. "Konan, I see you brought me a guest," the man said as the lights in the room became brighter, revealing that it was Pain they were looking at. "Hi, Pain-sama. This is the intruder, his name is N." Allow him to introduce himself, Conan. Pain interrupted. Naruto walked out of the elevator and up to Pain. He was a few feet away when he spoke. My name is Naruto, and I'd assume you're Nagato. Pain narrowed his eyes and gave off some killer intent to warn the boy not to overstep his boundaries. This caused Naruto to come to a halt just short of 2 feet away. Then he smiled, which confused Pain. Then Pain felt Naruto give off killer intent tenfold, making Pain back up and Conan feel like she was going to vomit. Forgive my rudeness, Nagato-sama. I just don't enjoy calling people by their nicknames. I could call you uncle if you would prefer. With that, the killer intent removed. Pain was looking at the boy wide-eyed. That was when he noticed Naruto's Rinnegan. Those are Kushina's eyes, my father's eyes, his eyes. Pain thought, so my sister was alive. If I knew then I would have looked for her. How is Kushina? Pain asked as he regained his calm composition. Well, as far as I know she's dead. Naruto, his smile gone now. Conan then walked up to Pain's side, as he spoke again. How unfortunate, she was such a good-hearted individual, but that doesn't matter now. Pain said as he and Conan turned to the door to his right and began walking towards it. Oh, you can stop masking your chakra. He said as he and Conan reached the door. Naruto shrugged and stopped masking his chakra. The wave of chakra was giving off was so intense that it seemed almost physical. Both turned to see that Naruto had an aura of visible blue chakra surrounding him. That soon disappeared, but the feeling of the massive overflowing chakra was still there. The two were still staring at Naruto as he walked towards the door, until he stopped right in front of the two. So are we going somewhere? He asked with yet another smile. The two cloaked ninjas snapped out it and opened the door that led into a hallway with large double doors at the end. I must introduce you to my master, the leader of our little organization. Pain said as he began to walk down the hallway, Conan in tow. Naruto just shrugged and followed them, putting his hand behind his head. I hope you chose to join my nephew. I would hate to see someone with your promise killed. Pain said, still walking, not looking back as he spoke. What's the name of this organization that you want me to join? Naruto asked. Akatsuki. Pain said plainly as he reached the door, opening it. Behind the door was a large chamber with no windows, just torches and candles, giving the room a dungeon-like feel. There was a throne with a man in red armor in the seat. He was staring at Naruto, almost glaring at him. Madara-sama, I have someone you might wish to see. Pain said as he led Naruto and Conan into the throne room and to stand in front of Madara. Madara chuckled. He looks so much like his forefather, how interesting. I'll have to make good use of this child. Madara thought, and who would the person be? Nagato-san? Madara asking, standing up and walked over to Naruto. Naruto was not at all intimidated by Pain, but this man was a different story. He was powerful and menacing. He was someone you wouldn't want to be on the bad side of. His name is Naruto. Pain said, he's my nephew. Ah. So your sister was alive. I thought you protected your loved ones, Nagato, not abandoned them in the middle of hells, nowhere to be found by some random ninja. Madara said with a small measure of amusement in his voice. Pain sneered at the comment. If I knew she was alive I would have looked for her, but no one, not even Dad, could have survived that explosion. At least that's what I thought. Pain hissed out the first part, but his voice became soft and guilt-filled at the end. Madara, still looking at Naruto, paid no heed to Pain, not caring what his response was. You know, Naruto, you look very much like an old friend of mine. I knew him long ago, Madara said. Naruto looked up at the man. Naruto was looked right into his red Sharingan eyes. A feat not many can pull off. Madara was at least a foot taller than Naruto. He had your eyes, those same unique eyes, your hair, even your face. All you're really missing are the horns. Madara chuckled at the last part. He then turned back to his throne, walking towards it as he spoke. This man is both yours and Nagato's forefather, the creator of the ninja world, and the man who gave me and my ill-fated brother and my clan our eyes, the first Sharingan eyes. Naruto looked at Madara as if he just told them the meaning of life. His name was Rikudo, the sage of the six paths, a literal god among man. I took several minutes of silence before Naruto had to voice his questions. How is it possible you would know a man that powerful and from that long ago? What are you, immortal? Naruto asked, clearly not believing Madara's claims. If you don't believe me, I'll just show you. Madara said, then his Sharingan transformed into his eternal Mankyu Sharingan. The world around Naruto suddenly changed to a massive desert plain. It was night, and the full moon was over the horizon. The plain was littered with the bodies. In the center the massive field of corpses stood 3 figures. One was Madara. Another was a man who looked very much like Madara. The Naruto thought he must have been Madara's ill-fated brother. Long ago, before the formation of the elemental nations, my younger brother and I followed Rikudo. He was our master. Together we slaughtered thousands upon millions of foolish warriors who dared to oppose us and the Uchiha clan. Madara narrated as if he was telling an epic tale. The observer then got a good look of this Rikudo. He was wearing battle armor like the 2 Uchiha warriors behind him, but it was dark green. He had a headguard on but it had no symbol. He also had horns that at first glance seemed to be part of his headguard, but upon closer observation it became clear that the horns were actually part of his head. He had horns like a demon. His facial features were much like Naruto's. The only difference was the skin color. Naruto was paler. Rikudo had silver hair that was the same shade Naruto's was, and Rikudo's eyes were the same as Naruto's, the same color, the same shape. Around Rikudo's neck was a necklace that had 6 small claw-like objects on the string. This scene before you is the aftermath of great battle at Sanagakure. The village had just been created and had been challenged by Iwagakure, the second hidden village to be created, the first being Kumogakure. The Uchiha clan was asked to assist in the Sanagakure defense and we were to be handsomely rewarded. Rikudo led the Uchiha clan to victory but was greatly weakened by the battle. He single-handedly killed over 6,000 Iwa ninja. But even with nearly 8/10 of his power lost in the battle, he was still incredibly powerful. Madara said. Suddenly the scene changed. Now the battlefield was still there. Just now Madara and his brother were keeled over in pain, and Rikudo was standing there. Both Madara and his brother had cuts scattered across their body, and their armor was dented and broken. Madara had Rikudo's long sword through his right shoulder and blood dripping from his mouth. Madara's brother had large gash going up his right arm and his right leg was bent in a sickening way. Rikudo was worse than the 2 Uchiha brothers. He had Madara's axe. I think that thing won his back as an axe, in his right shoulder, a debilitating wound to most but not to a god. Madara's brother's twin katanas were in his gut and he had 2 kunai in his left leg, 1 in his right, 3 in his right arm, 4 in the left, and 1 in his neck, and he was still standing. We tried to kill him. We succeeded, but only because he let us. When he gave me, my brother, and our clan the Sharingan, he told us how to obtain its strongest form, the Mangekyo, but only for a price. You must kill your best friend. You 2 are even more powerful than I expected. I thought I would have been able to hold the both of you off longer than I did. You both are nowhere near my level of power, but you have made me proud to be your teacher. Rikudo said. His voice was deep, but almost divine at the same time. It is a teacher's greatest dream to see their student reach the top of their strength, and you 2 have done that over the years. We 3 have become good friends and I'm happy to have helped you both reach your goal, power. Both Madara and his brother looked in horror as Rikudo walked towards the 2 of them still on their knees. Rikudo then kneeled when he was between the 2 and hugged them both. You both have made me very proud and I'm happy to leave you 2 with the power of Mangekyo in your hands. But I must warn you 2, this power comes with a curse and you must find out what this curse is and you will not like the price you must pay to rid yourself of it. Rikudo then got up, turned and began to walk away. I think I'll kill a god or 2. I wonder how my wife is doing in the heavens. What will my son be like without me? That reminds me. He then turned to face the brothers. Could you 2 look over my son and his children? Take it as a friend's last request. And with that Rikudo was gone. In a flash of light he was gone. There his armor and their weapons, hung in the air for a second then fell to the ground. That was the last me and my brother ever saw. Rikudo. Madara has the world returned to normal. Naruto was back in the throne room and Madara's Sharingan were normal. Rikudo, your forefather, allowed myself and my brother to kill him so we could obtain Mangekyo, and I have been watching over your bloodline ever since that day, and I have never seen eyes as strong as yours, Naruto. Your eyes just might be able to surpass Rikudo's. Madara said. Naruto along with everyone else in the room were shocked to hear Madara admit this. So what happens now? I mean, like, what happens to me? Naruto asked. Well, I'd hope you would join my organization. I could use someone with as much promise as you have. Madara said. Well, before I agree to that I think you should know I'm responsible for your student's death. Naruto said as he backed up fearing Madara's wrath, only to hear him chuckle. So you killed Itachi, that is unfortunate, but with him gone I can concentrate my attentions on your training. Madara said. Pain, Konan, and Naruto look at Madara in surprise. Pain, Konan, and all the other Akatsuki members will teach so you may become stronger. You will be our key to world domination. Naruto's sweat dropped. He can't be serious. Naruto thought. That's Akatsuki's goal, world domination? Naruto asked dully. Yes. Naruto sighed. At least he was going to get stronger. Okay, I agree. Naruto said. Good, now Pain, get Naruto out and introduce him to the other members. Oh, and keep him away from Orochimaru. Madara said, then he disappeared. Alright, let go, Naruto, and take this. Pain said as he handed Naruto a ring. It had the kanji for the vermilion bird. It was going to be Itachi's, but seeing as you're his replacement it away, it's yours now. Okay, thanks, I guess. The other members are in a room below us, we'll head there to meet them. Pain said as he walked to the exit, Konan next to him. So when does my training start? Naruto asked as he ran to catch up. The elevator doors closed behind Naruto as he entered the elevator with Pain and Konan inside. Pain was still a little shaken by the fact that Madara had taken such an interest in Naruto, and that he even said that Naruto's eyes were even keener than Pain's. Pain knew why though. Kushina had gotten their father's eyes while Pain's eyes were less powerful because he got most of his mother's genes. That was why he had black hair like his mother, while Kushina had silver hair like their father. As long as Madara keeps Naruto in check, I'm fine. Pain thought, but once Naruto's uses have run out I'll get rid of him myself. Pain's thoughts were interrupted by Konan speaking to Naruto. Naruto, just to warn you, that none of the other members know of Madara's existence other than you, me, and Pain-sama. Konan said. Naruto was about to ask why when Pain intervened. It's because of Madara's legendary status across the ninja world. All of our members are known as the most powerful missing nin from their villages, but to the rest of the world we are just criminals. Pain said, choosing each word carefully, but if word got out that a group of S-ranked missing nin being led by one of the most powerful ninja in the world, Akatsuki would be getting unwanted attention. People would consider us an even bigger threat and would try to halt our efforts, so I'm Madara's voice in a way. Then the elevator doors opened again. Behind the doors was a large room with several couches, most facing a large fireplace while others just faced each other. Along the walls were bookshelves and doorways to other rooms. There was a tall window that started at the floor and ended at the roof. It was at the center of the wall opposite the elevator. In the room were 5 figures. All were clad in black high-neck collar cloaks. There was one standing staring out the window. He had this really big plant-like thing around his head. It looked like a giant Venus flytrap. He had green hair and half of his body was black and the other was white. Another was reading a few books from a bookshelf. He had long black hair that stopped at mid-back. His skin was pale, very pale. Although Naruto couldn't see it, the man had slitted golden eye and purple marks that surrounded his eyes. On one of the couches facing the fireplace were 2 other figures. The one was counting a large amount of money out of a suitcase. His head was completely covered with the exception of his eyes. He had a tacky, waterfall, headguard with a scratch through the symbol, and he seemed to be very intent on counting the money. The other man was much larger than the others. He had a massive sword wrapped in bandages sitting beside him, but that wasn't what caught Naruto's eye. It was the fact that he was blue. His skin was light blue. His eyes were small and circular. He had a Kiri, mist, headguard with a scratch on through the symbol. He also had 3 gill-like marks on both cheekbones, and he was reading an orange book that said, Icha Icha Paradise, on the cover. Lastly, was an oddly shaped man that had a bamboo hat on his head. He was just sitting there staring off into space. For some reason Naruto thought he wasn't human. They all turned to the elevator to see how was in it. Immediately they all stopped what they were doing, stood and bowed. Pain bowed back and they all then looked quizzically at the silver-haired boy behind them. I'm sure you're all wondering who this boy behind me is. Pain stated as he walked out of the elevator along with Konan and Naruto. Well, I'd like you all to welcome our newest Akatsuki member. Pain said plainly. The blue man was the first to say anything while the others just looked at Pain like he had just said, we're now a daycare center. With a big smile. What? He's just a kid, since when have we become a... He was interrupted when Pain raised his hand signaling him to stop speaking. I did not ask for your opinion on the matter, Kisame, I asked you to welcome him, now introduce yourselves. Pain ordered. Naruto could tell all the members were no in the mood to introduce themselves as Pain put it, but that didn't stop them from doing what he said. I'm Kisame Hoshigaki, former Kiri Nin, and this is Samahata. Kisame stated, proudly slinging his sword over his shoulder, with a big shark-tooth grin. I'm Kakuzu, former Taki Nin, and bounty hunter. The masked man said as he started counting his money again. I'm Zetsu, former Kusa Nin. The green-haired man by the window stated as if he was bored out of his mind. Not going to introduce me? Kisame introduced Samahata. The black side of Zetsu said pissed off. Naruto was a little freaked out by the multi-personality argument that was soon to take place. Samahata can't talk, and plus we're the same person. That doesn't mean anything, you still could have introduced me. Fine, this is Zetsu, too. Thank you. By now everyone in the room was slowly backing away from the black and white plant man. I'm Sasori of the Red Sand, former Suna Nin. The oddly shaped man on the floor said. I'm Orochimaru, former Konoha Nin. The snaked man said as he put the book he was reading back on the shelf. Everyone looked at Naruto for a minute, then another, and another, and another, then he finally got it. Oh, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, I'm not a ninja but I'm from Konoha. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. How old are you, kid? Kisame asked. I'm 7 years old. Leader-sama? Kisame asked cautiously. Why is a 7-year-old an Akatsuki member? He's stronger than he looks. Pain said, the fact that he has Rinnegan is also a major factor. Then everyone, except Naruto, Pain, and Konan, looked at Naruto's eyes to see Pain wasn't lying. Naruto did have Rinnegan just like Pain's just blue. Another Rinnegan user. This one I might be able to use as my next body, that is if Pain doesn't get in the way. I'll give one guess at whose thoughts those were. Oh, K. Kisame said, still unconvinced. He then continued to read his Icha. Now, to assign you to a partner. Pain said. Partner? Naruto asked, looking up at Pain. Yes, in Akatsuki, members are separated into groups of 2 each of which will look for the keys to our goals. Pain said, you see Konan and I are partners, Sasori and Kisame are partners as well. Zetsu works better on his own so he's independent. Kakuzu has yet to be partnered with anyone, same with Orochimaru. Pain then began to toss ideas in the air. Kakuzu killed his last partner in bloodlust, and Orochimaru would probably try to take Naruto's body for his own, but that was better than having him torn to pieces by Kakuzu. Orochimaru. Pain said. Hi, Leader-sama. Orochimaru said. You are Naruto's partner. Perfect. Orochimaru thought, smirking, in his mind. Didn't Madara tell Nagato to keep me away from Orochimaru? Oh well, it's not like he's going to try to take over my body or something like that. Naruto thought to himself. Konan then poked Pain on the shoulder, then whisper. Madara-sama told you to keep Naruto away from Orochimaru. Yes, but I can't partner him up with Kakuzu or Zetsu. Kakuzu is more likely to kill Naruto than fight with him. And Zetsu would most likely eat the kid in his sleep. Pain exclaimed. Konan saw he was right. Zetsu is prone to the occasional bite on human flesh. He usually chose Kisame most of the time, and subsequently would get hit with his Samahata, but that didn't stop Zetsu from trying again and again. Kakuzu, being Kakuzu, would try to add Naruto's heart to his already considerable collection, so Orochimaru was the best choice. Alright. Well, if you all don't mind, I have other things to attend to. And with that, Pain bowed, entered the elevator with Konan next to him. They both turned and Pain pressed the button to the top floor. By Konan-chan, Naruto said with a wink as the elevator doors closed. He caught a quick glimpse of Konan going beet red right before the doors closed. Naruto though went into a fit of laughter, while everyone else just returned to what they were doing. Naruto looked at his new teammates. They could be less dull, but watching clouds could be a little more eventful, too. So you're my partner, huh? Naruto asked, as he walked over to Orochimaru, who was reading another book. Seems so, the snake-eyed man said. This is going to be a lot of fun. Naruto thought sarcastically. 3 years later, Kumogakure. The city streets of Kumogakure were very quiet today. The reasons were that word had gotten out that 2 S-ranked criminals were coming towards the city for unknown reasons. Some suspected it was to just ransack a few of the smaller villages, but the 2 criminals were spotted going through several small villages without harming a soul. As far as the Kumo ninja knew, they both wore black cloaks with red clouds. One was about 6 feet 4 and his cloak was hooded. The other was about 5 feet 7 and had a bamboo hat. Both were to be stopped from entering the city, at all cost. Several miles away, the two cloaked criminals were walking straight towards Kumogakure, intent on obtaining their goal. It's interesting how quickly we found her, don't you think, Orochimaru Dana, master? Asked the hooded figure. Kakuzu told me that it took him a whole year to find Sanbi and that thing wasn't even human. Yes, it is much more easier to find a target that is included in the bingo book, though. Orochimaru said. I guess so. How much was on her head anyway? The hooded man asked. 10,000 ryo. Wow, she must be one skilled ninja. 37 S-ranked missions, 123 A-ranked, and 57 B-ranked. So yes, she would be quite the skilled ninja for her age. The two walked in silence as they approached the gates to Kumogakure. They were then stopped by several Kumo nin who jumped in their path. What business do you have in Kumo, Orochimaru? The squad leader demanded. We are looking for Kumo nin, Yugito ni. The taller of the two said, not Orochimaru. The Nibi girl? One of the ninja asked. Be silent, and don't speak of the Raikage's daughter as such. The leader said. You know who we speak of? Orochimaru asked. Leave now or we will make you by force. The hooded man sighed. Orochimaru Dana, you want to take care of them or should I? The Kumo nin tensed, watching them both ready to strike. You kill them, I'll take the next batch. Before the Kumo nin could react, the hooded man yelled, Water element, destruction torrent. Sending a massive torrent of water, from his palm, at the Kumo nin, sending them back into the city. Lightning element, false darkness. That then sent an equally massive wall of lightning into the city, demolishing most of the area in front of the two. Then they both began to walk again. The Jinchuriki is in the sewer system. The hooded man said as a blue light shined from underneath his hood. Then we're going into the sewers. Orochimaru said as he formed several hand signs, then thrusted his hand into the ground. The earth beneath them both opened, letting the two drop into the sewers below. The hole then closed. Before Orochimaru could say anything, the hooded man sped off. Orochimaru immediately followed. It didn't take long for them to find the Nibi Jinchuriki. She was in Kumo Anbu gear and her hair was tied at the end. Not wasting any time, Orochimaru attacked. Wind element, wind bullet. Orochimaru then reared back his head and launched a massive ball of wind at the fleeing ninja. She couldn't avoid the attack and was sent flying into a sewer hub. As Yugito got up, she jumped out of the way to avoid several kunai. Give up, Ni, you can't escape. The hooded man said with an evil smirk as he and Orochimaru walked out of the tunnel. And what makes you think I'm the one who needs escape? Yugito asked as she formed a one-handed sign. Then the tunnel entrances in the hub all blew and collapsed. Oh, it seems we're trapped. Orochimaru said, chuckling. Then a section of the ceiling caved in. When the dust cleared, a man in white and yellow robes with a white and yellow hat with the Kenji of lightning standing in front between the two Akatsuki members and their objective. Ah, Yandemi Raikage-sama, what a pleasure to finally meet. The hooded man said. The Raikage snorted at the comment. You come to my city, kill my ninja, and threaten my only daughter's life. The Yondaime retorted, venom dripping from his voice. He was giving off some major killer intent, but much to his surprise both Orochimaru and the hooded man stood unfazed. I know who you are, Orochimaru, the self-proclaimed most powerful of the legendary three, but you I have not seen before. He said, pointing to the man with the hood. Me? The man said was he removed his hood to reveal a boy that looked to be in his early teens. He had silver spiked hair that seemed to shine in the light pouring in from the hole in the ceiling. He also had rune-like tattoos going from the corner of each eye down the sides of his face and seemed to continue onto his torso. Then the Raikage saw the boy's sky-blue Rinnegan eyes. I'm Naruto Uzumaki of Akatsuki. Yugito. Raikage said as he got into a battle stance. Run. Too late. Naruto said. Wind element. Air pressure damage. An unbelievably powerful whirlwind rammed both the Yugito and her father into the wall opposite Naruto and Orochimaru. Wind element. Double drilling air bullets. Naruto yelled, not showing either Kumo ninja any mercy. Yugito was hit by the bullet center way, but the Raikage was able to counter with his own jutsu. Fire element. Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. The Raikage then unleashed a large dragon's head-shaped fireball that went through Naruto's air bullet. Water element. Water wall. Naruto yelled, then a tornado of water surrounded Naruto and Orochimaru, who was getting tired of standing on the sidelines. Earth element. Earth dragon missile. Orochimaru yelled, then a dragon head made of rock tore through the ground, opened its mouth and fired several stone bullets at the wreckage. Then Yugito got in front of the bullets and yelled, lightning element. Lightning strike armor. The rocks bounced off of the girl now covered in lightning. But then Naruto appeared in front of her in midair, then delivered a roundhouse kick to her face, sending her crashing into a wall. The wreckage tried to punch Naruto only to have the boy disappear. Then he saw a large explosion of blood in front of him. It came from his chest, and when he looked down he saw an arm covered in blood, holding his heart, protruding from his chest. He could hear the faint screaming of a girl. She was screaming, "Dad!" It was Yugito's voice. He then heard Naruto's voice. "You're quite the annoyance, Raikage-sama. If you just let us take your daughter you would still be alive." Naruto said, "I would never abandon my daughter, no matter what. I would never betray my loved ones." The dying Raikage said as he coughed up some blood. "Then we have something in common." And with that Naruto used his free hand to remove the Raikage's head from his body. He then threw it into the sewer water and kicked the Raikage's dead body off his arm. "Dad," Yugito said as she ran over to her father's lifeless corpse, and collapsing to her knees in front of it. So unfortunate, for a cage to be killed in such a simple manner. Orochimaru said, "Yes, now enough delays, let's go Yugito." Naruto said as grabbed Yugito's arm only to see two yellow fiery tails appear out of thin air and impale him. Then Naruto poofed into a cloud of smoke. Orochimaru jumped back a few feet away from Yugito, and when he came to a stop Naruto appeared beside him ready to fight. The smoke cleared to reveal, "The Nibi? What the hell?" Naruto said, "She's turned into the Nibi? Apparently, watch out." Orochimaru yelled, as a massive fireball fired from the Nibi's mouth came at them both. Naruto then bit into his thumb, and rammed his palm into the ground. "Demon Gate!" he yelled as he and Orochimaru backed up even further. The Demon Gate was blown away in a massive explosion that consumed most of the area surrounding the gate. The Nibi then charged out of the smoke at an amazing speed. Orochimaru bit his thumb, then both him and Naruto rammed their hands into the ground beneath them. "Summoning Jutsu!" Naruto yelled. "Summoning Jutsu!" Orochimaru yelled. Suddenly, two clouds of smoke appeared where the two Akatsuki members were. Nibi jumped into the smoke. All was quiet. Then Nibi was thrown into the ceiling, and then a giant blue salamander, with Rinnegan eyes, and a large runic tattoo that spanned most of its body, jumped out of the smoke and rammed Nibi through the ceiling into the city. Nibi got back up and looked to where the hole was. Then out of the ground, jumped Naruto on top his giant blue salamander, and Orochimaru on top a giant brown snake. Kumo Nin and citizens began to gather around the battlefield to watch. "Time to cool you off, kitty, water element. Grand Whirlpool Sword." Suddenly, a large geyser of water sprouted from the hole, and Naruto grabbed the tip like it was the hilt of a sword. He then brought the hilt over his head to show that he was now wielding a giant is an understatement to the actual size, sword made of water. Naruto then jumped off the giant salamander's head and brought the Whirlpool Sword down on the Nibi, who was unable to avoid the strike. When the massive watery blade hit the Nibi, a massive explosion followed. For a second the world was silent. Then the water came back down and it rained for a second. Yugito was now her original self again, but it was clear that she was very weakened. Before she could even get her bearings, Naruto appeared beside her and kneed her in the stomach, then punched her across the face, grabbed her by the hair and threw her into the stone wall of a building. He was about to walk up to the wall he threw Yugito into, only to have several squads of Kumo Nin jump in his path. Not an inch close, the captain was interrupted, when he and his fellows were swallowed up by Naruto's summoned salamander. "Thank you," Naruto said with a smile. The salamander just nodded back, then stepped away from its master's path. Naruto grabbed Yugito by the neck then raised her off the ground. Her eyes were still open but it was obvious that she was struggling to stay awake. Naruto sighed, then punched her into the wall with enough force that it sent her through the wall and into a shop. Naruto appeared next to her. She was now unconscious. He picked her up bridal style and carried her outside, where he then jumped onto his salamander. "Let's go," Orochimaru said to Naruto as he appeared next to him. Orochimaru's summoned snake then disappeared. and Naruto's salamander jumped onto the road in front of it and charged at the gates out of Kumogakure. It didn't take long for Kumo Nin to begin chasing after the two. But Naruto was tired of the many delays. So he handed Yugito to Orochimaru and made one hand sign, then yelled, "Forbidden Arts, Darkness Beam." A shroud of black smoke then surrounded Naruto, and then it jetted forward like a beam of black smoke. The Kumo Nin who didn't jump out of the way were completely obliterated, but those who avoided the attack jumped at Naruto, who saw this coming. Forbidden Arts, Darkness Shockwave. Suddenly, the black shroud that once surrounded Naruto gathered into his palms, then, like an explosion, the ball of darkness that Naruto held in his two palms blew, sending a black shockwave at the Kumo Nin, who were turned to dust in midair, while the walls of nearby buildings were turned to mush and the windows were blew out as well. Then, before Naruto knew it, they were out of Kumogakure, then out of Kumo country, and on their way to their secret base in Konoha. Hokage Tower, Konohagakure. 7 hours later. The third Hokage was at his desk, like always, doing paperwork, but for some reason he had the feeling that he was going to be doing more than just paperwork today. His feelings were then confirmed by an Anbu Nin barging through the door. "Hokage-sama, we've spotted Orochimaru crossing the border to the northeast. He and two unknown ninja were being chased by Kumo Nin, until they crossed the border. As far as we know, they've come to a stop not too far from the border." The Anbu Nin said he was out of breath, and had most likely ran a very long ways to get this message to the Hokage. The third was shocked to hear this. Why would Orochimaru chose now to show up, and who were his companions? Who were these two ninja with him? The Hokage asked as he got up to and approached the worn-out Anbu messenger. One was unconscious, she was an Anbu Nin from Kumo. The other one was in a black cloak with red clouds, he had silver-spiked hair, was taller than Orochimaru too. The Anbu Nin said, Orochimaru was wearing a black cloak with red clouds, same as the other ninja. The Hokage was thinking this over, then it hit him, tall with spiked silver hair, it couldn't be. The Hokage thought, "Did you get a look at the silver-haired ninja's eyes?" he asked. No, Hokage-sama. Get every Chunin, Jonin, and Anbu unit available, and tell them to gather on the roof of the tower, now. Hi, Hokage-sama. The Anbu Nin then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Roof of the Hokage Tower, an hour and a 1/2 later. The Hokage now stood in front of nearly 60 of the ninja population of Konoha. All Anbu, Jonin, and Chunin. You all are here to be assigned to a S-ranked mission, of high importance and high risk. Those of you who don't wish to accept an S-ranked mission may leave, now. Everyone looked at the Hokage in surprise, but no one moved or left. The Hokage sighed. He was hoping that some of the younger Chunin would have left. This Anbu Nin has brought to my attention that S-ranked missing Nin, Orochimaru, is in Konoha country near the Konoha-Kumo border to the northeast. The third frowned at the gasps and scowls that overtook the ninja, but more importantly, I have reason to believe that Naruto Uzumaki is with him. This time even more people gasped, and some of the Anbu and former Anbu tensed at the sound of the name. Even though they were told Itachi killed their comrades that day 3 years ago, they all knew it was the Naruto kid that ran away from the village, and most of them still wanted revenge. But in the crowd a curtain raven-haired boy, who just made Jonin a week ago, couldn't believe his ears. Naruto, the person who had given him his revenge and changed the path of his life, was working with Orochimaru, the most hated and despised missing Nin in Konoha's history. Apparently, 3 years ago when Sasuke killed Itachi, he obtained Mangekyu Sharingan. This in turn also activated his Sharingan. He graduated the academy within 6 mouths, and made Chunin a few mouths after that. He was said to be the most promising ninja since the Yondaime. You all are to follow this Anbu Nin. The Anbu messenger stepped forward, back to his squad. If you see a chance to engage the two, you are to do so, but if not, don't make your presence known. Knowing all of this, do you all accept this mission? They all nodded. Alright, disperse. The all then jumped after the Anbu, leading them back to his squad. Naruto and Orochimaru, both Akatsuki members, were now standing in front of a large cave. Behind them a very lush and widespread forest. Naruto had Yugito in his arms, while Orochimaru made a hand sign, release. Then an invisible force field dissipated and both criminals walked into the cave. Suddenly, Naruto sensed someone watching them. He came to an abrupt halt. Orochimaru turned and then was thrown Yugito's unconscious body. He then at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. There's 4 chakra signatures out there, they're close enough to be watching. Naruto stated as he looked out into the lush forest with glowing blue eyes. It's odd though, 2 are blue, while one's white, and the other one is purple like yours. Orochimaru knew immediately who those 2 were. Ah, it's Kakashi Hitaki, an old acquaintance of mine, and Enko Mitarashi, my former apprentice. How interesting. I'll take care of them. Shadow clone jutsu. A poof of smoke. Then there were 2 Narutos. I can still do the ritual with just half of my chakra. Just toy with them, there's no need to kill them. The Naruto clone nodded, then exited the cave, and re-engaged the force field. The 2 then continued into the cave, until it led to a massive dome-like chamber with a hazed figure who stood at the center. Uncle Nagato, Naruto said. Naruto. Pain said. He had gotten used to Naruto addressing him by his real name and always referred to him as uncle. Now that you're here we can start. Pain formed several hand seals and then thrusted his hand down into the earth beneath him. Forbidden arts. Illusionary dragon 9 consuming seals. He yelled. Then a massive statue tore through the earth, and there stood the statue of the King of Hell in all its glory. Picture on profile. Okay, Naruto said as he jumped onto the tip of the right ring finger of the statue. Orochimaru dropped Yugito carelessly onto the spot where the nibi would be extracted. He then jumped onto the left pinky finger of the statue. Assemble, Pain said as he formed a hand sign, then out of thin air all the other fingertips, but the right thumb, were filled with hazed shrouds. Then Naruto noticed a new member. Who's the newcomer? Naruto said as he looked at the new Akatsuki member who seemed to have a 3-bladed scythe on his back. He's Hidan, a feminine voice announced. He's Kakuzu's new partner. She said, ah, a new heart to add to your collection, Kakuzu? No, fortunately, for him at least, Hidan can't be killed. Kakuzu said. Huh? Naruto asked unconvinced. He's immortal. Kakuzu said. Enough, we have more pressing matters to attend to. Pain said as he jumped onto the right thumb. Everyone then formed the ram hand seal. The scroll in the statue's mouth then fell to the ground, crashing into the earth. Then a blue glow coming from the statue's mouth became more announced every passing second, until a glob of blue chakra came out of the statue's mouth, and then encompassed Yugito's unconscious body. Red chakra then began to leak out of the girl's mouth and eyes, as the biju was slowly sucked out of her and into the statue. This should only take a few hours with 10 members to power the jutsu. Pain said. So, Orochimaru? Kisame said, when do you plan to try and take Naruto's body, again? Orochimaru glared at Kisame with a glare that would kill a normal man. Naruto just sighed at the memory. It was true when Naruto was 9, almost a full year ago. Orochimaru attempted to take Naruto's body for his own. Kusa country, 1 year ago. Naruto was walking across the great grass plains of Kusa, his hooded cloak on. He was called here by Orochimaru. Naruto thought it was for training, which it usually was, but he would soon see he was wrong. Across the plain he caught a glimpse of a cloaked figure. The cloak was black with red clouds. Naruto knew it was Orochimaru, who else would it be? But then said figure plunged his hand into the ground. There was a massive explosion of smoke. And then Naruto was looking at Orochimaru on top of a gigantic 3-headed snake. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I'm going to have to relieve you of your body. Orochimaru said with an insane smirk. Naruto backed up, not really expecting to fight a Sennin today. Before Naruto could process what was going on, the 3 heads lunged forward. Naruto dodged the middle one and jumped on its head, not wasting a moment's time. He used his chakra control skills he learned from Konan, and focused his chakra into his fist. Orochimaru watched as Naruto literally crushed the skull of the middle head. The 2 others lunged at Naruto, who was standing up from the remains of the snake's head. Naruto jumped right in time, going nearly 100 feet in the air. He then yelled, Earth Element. Grand 3-headed Earth Dragon Jutsu. Orochimaru had never heard of the jutsu, but the thing that bothered him was that he didn't see Naruto make a single hand sign. Had he done them so fast that he didn't see them? Or had he found a way to use jutsu without hand signs? Orochimaru's thoughts were cut short when a massive 3-headed dragon made of rock formed together across the plain from the now 2-headed snake. Naruto landed on the ground in front of the snake, then leapt back until he was in front of the dragon. He then jumped to the side so he was out of the way. Then before Orochimaru knew it, he had the massive three-headed dragon wrapping itself around the helpless snake. Fire element. Grand three-headed earth dragon self-destruction. Naruto yelled from across the field. Suddenly the dragon began to glow yellow. Orochimaru jumped off the snake, but he wasn't far enough when the stone dragon blew. The entire grassland before them was lit on fire from the sheer heat of the blast. The snake was all but obliterated. Orochimaru was propelled at least 600 feet into air, his cloak disintegrated. The area within a 500 feet radius of the explosion was now a smoldering crater, and Naruto was protected by a quarter circle that was protruding out of the ground before him, and it was made of glass. As the heat died down, Naruto walked out of the quarter circle. He then saw that Orochimaru was plummeting towards the earth at a deadly speed. Naruto rushed to save the man. Even though Orochimaru was trying to take Naruto's body for his own, Naruto still thought of the man as his best friend. Sure, Orochimaru didn't treat Naruto like he was a friend, but Orochimaru and Naruto had an understanding. Both of them grew up without parents, and that ultimately led to the friendship the two had. Naruto caught Orochimaru just in time. The snake Sennin was surprised to say the least. Naruto may not be willing to kill the guy or let him indirectly die by his hands, but that didn't mean he couldn't beat the living daylights out of Orochimaru. So then Naruto literally punted Orochimaru across the burning grass field, where he then crashed onto the grass. Naruto appeared next to him and kicked him dead center in the face, making him spin on the ground. Naruto then grabbed Orochimaru's leg, threw him across the field, and just before the snake Sennin hit the ground, Naruto appeared right where he was going to land and gave him a clean uppercut right to his chin. Orochimaru landed in the crater and rolled until he was at ground zero. Naruto skidded down the crater until he was beside Orochimaru. He looked unconscious, but as always, looks are deceiving. Orochimaru's body began to change. The black shirt and pants he wore under his cloak were enveloped by this strange white glob that Orochimaru was changing into. Naruto jumped back until he was at the edge of the crater. The glob now was beginning to take shape. It had green spines on what Naruto assumed was its back. 8 stumps were beginning to come out of the blob. Those two had the green spines on their back. Then before Naruto's eyes, the blob took the form of a huge 8-headed snake, easily the size of, if not bigger, the 3-headed snake from before. Naruto then felt sick, like he was going to throw up. There was also this unusual smell in the air, poison. Naruto thought as he jumped back, put as much space between him and the snake as necessary. Naruto then did a mess of hand signs in the blink of an eye and held the final hand sign, Tiger, Fire Element, Twin Black Dragon Firestorm. Naruto yelled, still holding the Tiger hand sign. The black smoke that had been rising off of the burning grass field then began to swirl around Naruto like a tornado. Then 2 dragon-shaped shrouds came out of the top of the tornado and charged at the Orochi, 8-headed snake. The twin smoke dragons began to circle around the Orochi faster and faster. The snake's several heads tried to attack the dragon shrouds, but their attacks just went through the smoke. The dragons soon turned to flames that were circling the Orochi at unbelievable speeds. Then a literal cyclone of fire enveloped the Orochi. The massive snake was slowly being eaten away until it was a simple glob once more. Naruto then released the jutsu, and the smoke around him cleared. He once again walked up to Orochimaru. The man was still alive, but barely. He was still conscious. You have gotten quite strong, Naruto," Orochimaru said between labored breaths. "You know, Orochimaru Dana?" Naruto said. Orochimaru looked at the boy, right in those Rinnegan eyes Orochimaru wanted to possess. "That was a really cool jutsu you used. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, and the way it poisoned the air, that was a good move. Do you think that you can teach me that jutsu?" Orochimaru looked at Naruto like he was insane, and asked, "What?" I said, "Can you teach me that jutsu? Why in God's name would I teach you anything? Because I'll kill you if you don't," Naruto said with a smile. It was a joke. Orochimaru was confused, very, very confused. He thought Naruto was going to kill him for the betrayal, but here he was making jokes. "Aren't you going to try and kill me for betraying you?" Orochimaru asked. Naruto shook his head. "As long as you don't do it again, I'm fine. Plus, if I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't have caught you when you were falling from the sky. Now would have I?" he said, holding his hand out to help Orochimaru up. Orochimaru hesitantly accepted the offer, and Naruto helped the worn-out snake Sennin onto his feet. Naruto then draped Orochimaru's arm over his shoulder as they both climbed out of the crater. Orochimaru couldn't help but look at Naruto with a mix of awe and confusion. Here was a boy that thought of Orochimaru as his best friend, one of the few friends Naruto had out of the whole organization other than Konan and Kisame. What is it with this kid that he can do this to people? Orochimaru thought. It was true, Naruto had that strange and unique ability to make friends with anyone, even the most sadistic people this world had to offer. Like when they first met, Orochimaru thought of Naruto as just an annoying kid, but as they both trained and fought together they had grown to be friends. He refused to accept it at the time, and even went to many lengths to try and sever that friendship, but it never seemed to work, even now. He would continue to try and obtain the Rinnegan, but not through Naruto but through pain. He knew, along with everyone else in Akatsuki, that Naruto didn't really like his uncle. In fact, he were sure the two hated each other, and he would use that to get those eyes. Present, the cave, Orochimaru never tried anything after that day, even though Kisame constantly reminded him of it and how he got his ass handed to him by Naruto. When they both got back, Naruto told Pain about what happened. Orochimaru's punishments were few to none, because Pain thought that the beating that Orochimaru received at the end of the battle was enough. Not much had happened since then, well, except when Naruto finished his training under Madara, he was given Rikudo's necklace. Madara had held onto it for quite some time, and decided that Naruto had earned it. All in all, Naruto's life in these 3 years had been fun. He had created several jutsus like Fire Element, Twin Black Dragon Firestorm, Fire Element, Grand Fire Snake, Earth Element, Grand Three-Headed Earth Dragon Jutsu, Forbidden Arts, Darkness Beam, Forbidden Arts, Darkness Shockwave, Forbidden Arts, Darkness Vortex, and the only one that Naruto had yet to fully test, Condensed Chakra Gun. It's sort of going to be like the four-tailed Kyuubi's chakra cannon. He and Konan were very close friends, borderline boyfriend-girlfriend, and Naruto was probably the most powerful Akatsuki member, not including Madara of course. "Yo, Uncle Nagato?" Naruto asked out loud. A grunt signaled Pain heard him. "Can me and Orochimaru Dana get some off time? I want to come back to a Megacure, I haven't been there in a whole year." Pain thought about it for a second. He wasn't too keen on Naruto being in AIM, but they both deserved some off time for getting the Nibi in such short time. "Sure," he said plainly. "Yes." Naruto thought to himself as he smiled. He wasn't happy because he was going to see a Megacure after a year away, but he was happy because he was going to see Konan after a year away. His thought faded to what his clone was doing to those Konoha outside. Outside the cave, with Naruto's clone, the shadow clone of Naruto was looking directly at where the chakra signatures were. He had to say they were very well hidden. If it wasn't for his eyes he wouldn't be able to see them. "You know I can see you," Naruto said loudly. He could see them flinch that turned their heads to look at him. "They weren't even looking at me in the first place? Well, that was a great way to lost a possible sneak attack." Naruto thought to himself. The figures just stayed there not moving. Naruto sighed. Maybe they were trying to make it seem like they weren't there. Naruto did several hand signs in an instant, like always, and yelled, "Fire Element, spread fire." Naruto then extended his arms towards the forest, palms open, and in an instant the entire forest in front of Naruto was lit ablaze. 4 figures jumped out of the forest, and threw several kunai at Naruto. "Fire Element, Grand Fire Snake." Naruto yelled. The fire from the blazing forest then formed together into a giant snake that encircled Naruto, protecting him from the kunai. The snake then attacked the ninja. 3 managed to jump out of the way, but one very unlucky one didn't jump in time and was eaten by the giant fire snake. "Lightning Edge," yelled one of the ninja with a dog mask and gray hair, who then charged Naruto at a surprising speed, but Naruto, just barely, dodged the attack by jumping into the air, where he then shifted his weight so he flipped forwards so he could deliver a chop kick to the back of the Anbu Nin's head, sending said ninja flying until he was caught by one of his fellows. The other Anbu Nin jumped beside his 2 teammates. Naruto's eyes began to glow as he used them to see the chakra color. The one that just appeared was the only one with blue chakra, so the other 2 must be Kakashi and Anko. That one doesn't interest me. Naruto thought as a black sword began to form in his hand. The Anbu Nin looked at the Rinnegan user oddly as a black blade literally came out of his arm. It was a jutsu Pain taught him. The blade was for all intensive purposes indestructible as long as the wielder was still alive. Then the Anbu nin that Naruto wasn't interested in was cut in half by what seemed like an unforeseen force. Anko and Kakashi looked in horror as their fellow Anbu squad mate fell to the ground in 2 pieces. They then looked at their unknown assailant. Blood dripped from the black sword that he held. They both then jumped to attention. This guy, whoever he was strong and was going to be no pushover. Well, now what would 2 Konoha Anbu nin be doing in this part of the woods? Naruto asked as his fire snake slithered next to him, only to have Naruto release the jutsu making the snake disappeared. We could ask you the same thing. Anko retorted. Oh, me well, I found a little kitten not too far from here and I decided to bring it here, and leave the poor thing in the right hands. Naruto said smugly. Wait a minute, I know you, Kakashi said. Then it hit him like a ton of bricks. Oh no, Anko, get out of here. I'll hold him off for as long as I can, just run. Kakashi said as he drew his katana. Anko had never seen Kakashi so worried before, and he had never called her by her real name when they were in uniform, so this must have been bad. Who is he? She asked, getting into a fighting stance. Anko, just shut up and run, Kakashi said as he charged Naruto, his Sharingan watching Naruto's every move. Anko got the message and readied to flee, but then Naruto appeared in front of her. I don't think so, Naruto said as he grabbed her mask by the eye holes. He then forced her forward, kneeing her in the stomach, and threw her at Kakashi, removing her mask in the process. Kakashi caught her. Naruto wasn't about to let his fun just run away like that. Kakashi couldn't believe it. Naruto was unbelievably fast, and it was all but too obvious that they weren't getting away without killing him, which didn't seem like it was going to happen anytime soon. So, Kakashi, Anko, do you think you can beat me on your own? Naruto asked. Kakashi and Anko got up. This was not going to be a taijutsu battle, that was for sure. Naruto was just too fast for that. Sword fighting didn't sound too bad. Anko and Kakashi were good with a katana. Ninjutsu might work. Well, if you won't attack then I will. Fire element, dragon flame bomb. Naruto yelled as he reared his head back, then unleashed a beam of fire from his mouth. Kakashi and Anko avoided it easily, but then Naruto appeared beside Kakashi and went to kick the man in the chest. Kakashi easily blocked the attack and grabbed onto Naruto's leg. Naruto couldn't move. Anko, Kakashi yelled. Anko came charging at Naruto with her katana, ready to decapitate the boy. Naruto then made quick decision. He dislocated the leg Kakashi held, twisted his body so Anko's swipe missed, where he then stuck his sword into Kakashi's right and left calf, which skewered his lower legs, and finally kicked Anko in the face, sending her into a scorched tree. Kakashi was forced to let go of Naruto. He then fell to the ground and went to pull out the sword, only to be kicked in the chest, which sent him skidding into a tree next to Anko. Naruto got up and then relocated his leg, cracked his back and neck, and then said, "That was interesting, never really had to do that in a battle. Maybe I should be taking you two a little more seriously." Ah, who am I kidding? Naruto charged at Kakashi, but then something happened that no one saw coming. Suddenly, anywhere from a 400 to 500 ninja came out of the charred forest. Oh, shit, Naruto said as he came to a stop. The clone was strong, but he would need to be at full strength to face an army of Konoha nin. Well, I guess this is the end for me. Might as well go out with a bang. Naruto then jumped into the reds of enemy nin, taking as many as he could until he was sure it was over. Then he charged up all his chakra, so once he was destroyed he'd go out with a really big boom. Before he knew it, several swords impaled his torso. He just smiled, then whispered, "Boom." The explosion was so bright everyone that wasn't killed in the blast would be blinded for a few hours. Kakashi looked at the crater left behind by what was apparently a shadow clone. The explosion took out at least 40 ninja, while about 20 were killed when Naruto jumped into the crowd. He really couldn't believe any of what just happened. Anko and him had been fighting a clone with only half of Naruto's power, and he was just toying with them. Naruto, what the hell are you? The cave, the body of the Nibi container had lifted into the air from before. The eyes of the statue were now almost fully opened, and the glob of blue chakra that held the Nibi suspended in the air had grown to a size as large as the statue itself. The ceiling is almost done, Pain announced. Had been a few hours since they started, and Zetsu said that he spotted a Konoha army heading towards this cave. Good, Naruto said as the events that his clone had seen play through his mind. cause that army is here. Just a few more minutes. Pain said. Outside the cave, the Konoha nin were preparing for the fight of their lives. Two of the most powerful ninja in the country were inside that cave, and at the minute there was no way to get in the cave. The whole place was protected by some force field that burned anyone who touched it. Medic nin were still looking for any survivors of the explosion. So far none had been found. They were also treating the few that survived the Naruto clone's charge. Kakashi was currently waiting to get his legs healed by a medic nin. He was still thinking about what just happened. Naruto couldn't be more than 10 years old by now, and to be that powerful at that age, imagine what he would be like when he was Kakashi's age, or hell, the Three Roads age. Hey, Kakashi. He looked up. It was Rin. Who the hell didn't this to you? She asked as she leaned down to heal his legs. Sensei's son, he said plainly. Rin went stiff. Did he just say Sensei's son? She looked at Kakashi wide-eyed. Sensei's son? Rin asked. How is that possible? He can only be 10 years old. How in the world could he do that, and why would he attack you? Kakashi couldn't handle the bombardment of questions, and the fact that his legs were starting to go numb didn't help. Rin? She stopped asking questions and looked at him with a face that said, "Are you going to tell me or what? Could you heal my legs, then I'll answer your questions." That was when Rin remembered what she was there for. She blushed in embarrassment, then started to heal Kakashi's legs. She finished in less than 5 minutes, and then the questions came. What did he look like? He was a clone. How did he defeat 2 Anbu nin at such a young age, and a shadow clone at that? What jutsus did he use? How fast was he? Do you know why he's with Orochimaru? Blah, blah, fucking blah. The list itself could go on forever. And Kakashi had to answer every one of them. The cave, it's done. Pain said, as the eyes of the statue closed once again and Yugito's body crashed onto the ground. About fucking time. I think I have a cramp in my arm, from standing there for 3 fucking hours. Hidan yelled as his image faded. Well, isn't he just a joyful individual? Naruto said sarcastically. Yeah, don't you just want to chop off a limb or two? He can't die, so you can just lob off his head whenever you want, and he's too slow to avoid it. Kisame said, snickering to himself, as he and Sasori faded away. Kakuzu sighed as he too faded away into nothingness. Zetsu let out an annoyed groan as he disappeared, along with his partner, Deidara. I expect you two to take care of the intruders outside, and this hideout so no one knows what has transpired here. Pain said. Oh, don't worry about them, I have just the thing to take care of them. Naruto said as 2 scrolls slid out of his sleeves into each hand. He then threw them into the center of the chamber. Release. Suddenly, both scrolls blew and sent kunai with explosive seals attached in every direction. Naruto and Orochimaru easily dodged the one sent their way, and the one sent Pain and Konan's way just passed through the 2 shrouds. That should do nicely, Naruto said proudly. Could you warn me the next time you do that, Naruto? Orochimaru said as he jumped off his finger onto the ground below. Naruto followed suit. See you in Omegacure, Uncle Nagato. You too, Konan-chan. Naruto said. The statue then disappeared in a blast of smoke. Both Naruto and Orochimaru then began walking out of the dome chamber and into the cavern that led to the outside. Orochimaru then released the force field, and they walked out into the open. It was clear no one was in the open, but Naruto used his eyes to see what he could see. His eye glowed for a minute, then he whispered. It seems we're not alone, they have us completely surrounded. Orochimaru nodded. He knew what to do. They needed a quick getaway. Then 2 scrolls slipped out of their sleeves, and into their hands. The 2 Akatsuki members then threw each of their scrolls into the sky. And once they were about 100 feet up, they yelled, "Release," and then disappeared. The Konoha nin were about to go for the chase, but as they came out of their hiding places they were all hit with hundreds upon thousands of kunai all falling from the sky. Then as the survivors tried to get up they noticed that all the kunai had explosive tags on them. A few hundred yards away, both Orochimaru and Naruto watched from atop high hill. They both then made the tiger hand sigh and said, "Release." The burnt forest before them then was lit ablaze once again. Thousands of explosion combined with the screams of hundreds of Konoha nin echoed throughout the wilderness. Orochimaru couldn't help but smile. Then the small mountain that held the secret chamber was blown open by a series of explosions. It was a scene Deidara would be proud of. Both Naruto and Orochimaru then began tree-hopping their way across the forest. It would be a 5-day journey at most to get to the Kusa-Konoha borderline, and then a day to get to AIM after that, so it was going to be a long trip and it would have to be non-stop since they were in Konoha. Good thing, I bought these soldier pills, Naruto said as he put one in his mouth and then gave one to Orochimaru. Amikage Tower, a megacure, 6½ days later. Orochimaru and Naruto both had finally arrived at a megacure after 6½ long days. They were worn out. Like, pass out before you even hit the bed, worn out. Even Naruto, the stamina god, was about to just completely pass out. They walked into the lobby. Every AIM nin made sure to steer clear of the two as they walked to the elevator. Naruto pushed the second to top floor button, then leaned against the elevator wall. Orochimaru did the same. He almost fell asleep. Hey, Orochimaru Dana, wake up, I'm not carrying you to your room, Naruto said as he shook Orochimaru's shoulder. The elevator doors opened, a few minutes later, to the living room from when Naruto first came here. Naruto and Orochimaru stumbled out of the elevator. Naruto went to the hallway on the left, Orochimaru the one on the right. Naruto finally arrived at his room he lived in there while he was training under Pain, Kisame, Orochimaru, Konan, and Madara. He opened the door. The room was black and red, walls and ceiling and floor were all black along with the bed frame of his bed. The sheets were red. It was a king-sized bed. There was a bathroom just opposite the entrance. The inside was totally different from the bedroom. White walls, ceiling and floor. Stand-up shower toilet next to that sink and mirror were right opposite the door. All the rooms were like this, with the exception of the color. The color of the sheets depended on the color of rain. Naruto walked over to his bed not bothering to close the door. He then passed out and landed just inches away from the softness of his bedsheets. Naruto's dream. A 5-year-old Naruto was walking through the streets of Konoha. As he passed by people and other store people would smile at him. Some would wave. Some would even say, hi. It was all mainly because he was the Yondaimi's son. The title was just that. A title because his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, was from AIM and not Konoha born. Yondaime and Kushina couldn't marry. It was tradition that the Hokage take a Konoha-born woman as his wife, so Kushina remained an Uzumaki and not Namikaze. So that also meant that Naruto would be Kushina's son and not legally Minato's. Even though he was biologically, that meant that Naruto wasn't allowed any inheritance from his father's fortune, home, or belongings. Kushina's belongings were also all legally Minato's, so Naruto couldn't even inherit his mother's belongings. So all in all, Naruto was left with nothing. He went to the orphanage, but he would always sneak out to do funner things. He didn't like it there because the kids would always tease him about his height, and the adults who ran the place would always make him do the hard chores that required some muscle. It builds character, they would say. Naruto walked to the park almost every day that he sneaked away. It was always peaceful there, and the kids there didn't tease him, because he had scared away the bullies of the playground a while ago around the first time he came there. He made friends with a kid named Shikamaru Nara. He was really down to earth for a kid. He was also very lazy, easily annoyed, but he was really smart, for a kid. They usually just sat there, Naruto taking in the peace and quiet, and Shikamaru just watching clouds. They rarely talked, but when they did it was not about something simple like the shape of a passing cloud or a random bug flying by. Naruto made friends with other kids like Kiba Inuzuka and Choji Akamichi. He also befriended a few girls too. Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Haruno, and Hinata Hyuga, who seemed to be very shy around Naruto. Naruto then began to hear a voice as he walked towards the park. It was a woman's voice, but it was more soothing than those of other women he had met. Then Naruto felt like he was being shacked, and then he woke up and his dream was over. Naruto's bedroom, 10 hours after he passed out. Hey, Naruto-kun, wake up, Konan said as she shook his shoulder again. Naruto's eyes opened and he looked around and then looked up to see who woke him up. He saw the blue hair and the blue makeup and immediately knew who it was. Konan-chan, Naruto yelled as he got up in an instant, and gave Konan a big hug. She blushed a little from the contact then returned the hug. She didn't blush as much as she used to. Naruto was a little glad about that change. Naruto then let go of Konan. He was then able to get a good look at her. She had changed since he had last seen her. Her hair had grown long enough that she had to tie it back in a bun so it didn't get in the way. She was about an inch or two taller, but still not as tall as Naruto. Her curves were more pronounced too. But all in all she looked as young as she did the first day they met. "So how have you been, Conan-chan?" Naruto asked. "Not much, just a lot of paperwork. How about you?" Conan said. She seemed to have changed a little bit in personality too. The "I don't give a damn" mask that she would always wear around people seemed less of a mask now. It was like she now had a more dark demeanor. "Oh, not much, just a few epic battles here and there, nothing that interesting," Naruto said, putting his hands behind his head while smiling. "Well, I came here to tell you Pain-sama wants you to meet him in his office upstairs," Conan said. "Okay," Naruto said. Conan then turned to leave. "Oh, Conan-chan?" She turned around. "Yes?" she asked. "I was wondering if you were up for a taijutsu match, just a little spar. I want to show you a few moves I've learned." Naruto was trained in taijutsu by Conan during his first 2 years of training, because she didn't know very much jutsu and mainly only had her origami to use against her foes. She worked to enhance her taijutsu most of her ninja life, so that was what landed her the job of training Naruto taijutsu. "Sure, see you later then, Naruto-kun," Conan said as she turned around and walked towards the door. Then Naruto noticed something as Conan walked out of the room. "Wow, Conan-chan has a really nice ass." He then noticed something else. He smelled really bad. "Well, that's what 6 days of running non-stop will do to you. Guess, I'll take a shower," Naruto said as he walked towards the bathroom, taking off his cloak and throwing it carelessly, and kicked his sandals off onto the floor next to his bed. When he entered his bathroom, he took off his black shirt and fishnet undershirt and set them down on the countertop. Naruto then looked up at his reflection in the mirror. His entire torso was covered in runic tattoos that stopped just after his elbows on his arms, and just before his waist. 2 trails led up the sides of his neck and then the sides of his face until they met the corner of his Rinnegan eyes. He got this tattoo while he was in Kirigakure half a year ago. Naruto then noticed his necklace. No, his forefather's necklace. The necklace of the 6 paths. It was one of the most important items in his possession. It was a family heirloom of sorts. One more noticeable physical change was he was very well built, almost ripped. Naruto shrugged, and then removed his black pant and his boxers, and went into the shower not taking off his necklace. He turned on the hot water to high, while turning the cold water to mild, and then grabbed the shampoo. As the warm water started soaking his body, poured some in his hand and started washing his hair. Hokage Tower, Konohagakure. The Hokage was sitting in on his couch staring at the pictures of the Hokages that came before him, and the one that had succeeded him 10 years ago. Many things were going through his head at the moment. The biggest one was the reappearance of Orochimaru and Naruto. Another one was the massive amount of losses that Konoha had taken from trying to fight the two. What a fool he was for sending them to fight Orochimaru and possibly Naruto as well. He told himself, it was a suicide mission that he willingly gave them. The news of Naruto's strength was quite disturbing. From what Kakashi had reported, a shadow clone of Naruto was able to best both Kakashi and Anko, and Kakashi said that the clone was just toying with them. The fact that Naruto was also working in tandem with Orochimaru was very disturbing as well. The battle, more like massacre, had very few survivors. Out of the 447 that were at the cave, when Naruto and Orochimaru attacked, only 17 were still alive. Anko and Kakashi along with the other Wanuded from the Naruto clone's charge were evacuated before the battle took place. Anko had already been released from the hospital, just minor scrapes and bruises. Kakashi was released too, but was now at the moment drowning out his sorrows at the KIA memorial. The reason was that his last remaining teammate, from Team Minato, and lover, Rin, had died at the battle. It was a chaotic event that could have been easily prevented, but it was too late to change the past. He had to deal with the now. And so the Hokage got up, put on his hat, and walked out of the room, but just before he passed through the door he gave a quick glance at the Yondaime's picture. "I'm sorry, Minato." Naruto's bedroom, a megacure. Naruto grabbed his towel as he exited the shower. He dried his hair and then wrapped it around his waist. He then exited the bathroom and walked up to his closet, and opened the door. Naruto took out a new black shirt and fishnet undershirt, new pair of black pants, and some boxers. A minute later he was dressed, and then he grabbed a new cloak. Naruto smiled as he thought back to the day he convinced his uncle to do the design of the cloaks to have them black with red clouds like his favorite hoodie. When he did it, everyone else, even Pain, liked it so much that they designed theirs the same way, and that was made Akatsuki's calling card. black cloaks with red clouds. Naruto then slipped his arms into the sleeves and buttoned up the cloak, walked back into the bathroom, gather up his dirty cloths. Then an orange book slipped out of the back pocket of his black pants. He picked it up, Icha Icha, Paradise. He gave the book a perverted grin, then tossed it onto the bed. When he first started reading it was when he was about 8. Naruto just decided one day to ask Kisame about it, and the shark man gave him the book and said, "Read up. Some of the things in here might become useful for you one day." At first, Naruto thought the book was gross in multiple areas, but for some freak of a reason he started reading it again, a few months after his 9th birthday, and he couldn't put the thing down, and a few weird things started happening to his body as he read into the extremely explicit areas of the book. A whole lot of other weird things happened to Naruto that year, like for one woman seemed a hell of a lot more attractive, and he started thinking of what curtain girls looked like without those cloths they wore. You all know what was happening to him at the time. Well, I hope you do. Naruto left the bathroom with the dirty cloths in hand. He then grabbed the dirty cloak on the floor and put all in a blue basket that was in the corner of his room. With that out of the way, Naruto walked out of his room, putting on his sandals and then closing the door on his way out. He walked towards the living room. When Naruto arrived, Orochimaru was there sitting on the couch reading a book. He gave Naruto a nod as a greeting, and Naruto returned it. The young Rinnegan user then walked to the elevator, which promptly opened, and pressing the top floor button as he entered. When the elevator doors opened, he walked out to see his uncle was outside sitting on the balcony looking out into the distance as it rained. Naruto walked out and the rain faded away. Pain looked up to see who had disturbed him. His eyes met those of his nephews, both glared at each other for a second, and then Pain sat up and spoke. "I have information on your next target, the Ichibi, that might prove very useful." "Oh?" Naruto said with a raised eyebrow. "Yes, it appears it was sealed into the Yondaime Casecage's son, Gaara. I think that was his name." Pain stated as he walked into his office, grabbed a large stack of papers, and handed it to Naruto, who took it and started to look them over. "Where did you get all of this?" Naruto asked. The papers were all copies of things like Gaara's birth certificate, Gaara's home address, a record of Gaara's Amedite skills, of which there were many, a list of missions the Casecage has prepared for Gaara, a list of assassination attempts on Gaara, a list of deaths caused by Gaara, skills and rank of Gaara's older siblings, Kankuro and Temari, and hell of a lot of other stuff, too, mostly about Gaara. Deidara and Zetsu both had some free time, so I assigned them to a special recon mission into Sanagakure. The mission was a success, and that's how I got the information for you and Orochimaru. Well, this all should come in handy, thanks, Naruto said, as he started to walk towards the elevator. He could hear the rain start again as he re-entered the elevator, and when he turned around, Pain was once again sitting on the balcony staring off into the distance. He needs a hobby, Naruto thought. The elevator doors opened to the living room. Naruto walked out of the elevator, then walked up to Orochimaru and dropped the large stack of papers on his lap. Orochimaru dropped his book and looked up at Naruto with his death glare. Naruto just stood there unfazed and said, "This is all information on our next target, Gaara of the Hidden Sand. I have a plan on how to get him and make it fun for the both of us." Naruto finished as he sat down next to Orochimaru, who started looking through the papers. "And how do you plan to do that?" Orochimaru asked as he continued to look at each paper, then restacking it beside him. "You know the annual Chunin exams that are held every year in one of the hidden villages?" Naruto asked. Orochimaru nodded. "Well, the one that is going to be held in 2 years is going to be held at Konoha. Gaara is going to be attending the Chunin exam from what the Yondaime Casecage's reports say. And what does this have to do with me having as much fun as you will be?" Orochimaru said, still a little confused. "This may be your chance to get back at your sensei, and kill a few Konoha nen," Naruto said as he leaned back in his chair, smiling all proud of himself. Orochimaru thought about it for a second, then came to the conclusion that Naruto was right. If they did it that way it would be fun, as Naruto put it. They would get the Ichibi, and Orochimaru would kill Sarutobi. Orochimaru finished reading the papers. There was a large amount of useful information, but there was some they didn't need, so he threw those papers away. "Sounds good to me," he said as he got up with the stack of papers in his arms and walked towards the hallway to his bedroom. "I'll keep this with me," and then he disappeared down the hallway. "Yeah, see you later." Naruto said as he back-flipped off the couch and walked towards his room. Oh, wait, I have a sparring match with Konan-chan. Naruto said as he ran towards the elevator and pressed the button to the floor under the one he was on. The elevator doors closed and Naruto was a little angry that it wasn't moving that fast. Come on, motherfucker. Okay, he was pissed that it wasn't moving that fast. The door finally opened, Naruto turned into a blur as he speeded through the hallways towards the dojo. People who were in the hallways either barely made it out of the way, or were run over. When he arrived, Naruto literally rammed the doors open, sending the door and Naruto flying to the other side of the dojo. Wow, that was a nice entrance, Naruto-kun. Naruto looked over towards the voice to see Konan sitting against a wall, staring back at him with a smirk. Naruto got up, brushed himself off, and gave Konan an embarrassed smile. "Yeah, sorry I'm late," Naruto said. "Don't worry about it, so what did Pain-sama want you for?" Konan asked as she removed her cloak, so she was only wearing her black t-shirt and black pants, and put it on the floor next to her and got up. Naruto took off his cloak and threw it to the wall opposite Konan. "He just wanted to give me some information on my next Biju target. Me and Orochimaru are going to wait until 2 years to go after the guy," Naruto said as he got into a taijutsu stance. Konan did the same. "Why's that?" "Oh, just to make it more interesting. You know that attitude is going to get you killed one day." Naruto shrugged. "I guess, but until that day comes I'm going to keep doing it." Konan smiled at him. "Okay, then you ready?" "Ready, as I'll ever be." "Good." And with that the two charged at each other.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.